Back in the day, 2 or 3 years ago, there was a combination of weapons that Hypixel Skyblock players would literally die beside. Obviously, years later, there's new weapons being introduced into the game, and the game has developed and progressed a lot. However, the Livid Dagger and Flower of Truth combination used to be a staple. The Flower of Truth's base damage wasn't great, and also its right-click ability is the one that you mainly used, and that actually required mana. It was interesting. The Livid Dagger was there for the one-hit damage. But we're no longer living in that primitive time. Today we're going to be taking a look at a weapon that is criminally underused, underrated, and good value for money. And that is, of course, the Bouquet of Lies. Implemented into the game a good few months ago now, and a direct upgrade from the Flower of Truth. Now, the Flower of Truth boasted kind of mediocre base damage and stats, plus 160 damage and plus 300 strength. But the Bouquet of Lies, on the other hand, is no joke, giving us plus 220 damage, plus 300 strength, and plus 50% crit damage. And sure, it's not going to compete with the likes of something like a Giant Sword in terms of one-hit damage, but the Bouquet of Lies has a ridiculously good right-click ability. Petal Barrage. On right-click, fire a barrage of 3 roses that ricochet between enemies. Hitting up to 5 foes, for every 10% of your health missing, your roses deal 2% more damage. It's on a cooldown of 1 second, and rather actually costing mana like the Flower of Truth always used to, it actually costs 10% of your health. Now, which in turn means that you deal more damage, because the less health that you're on with the, with this right-click ability, the more damage that you actually deal. It's not a huge buff, but it's definitely there. So you shoot 3 roses, and each rose can ricochet against up to 5 enemies. Which means this is actually viable to use for clearing in dungeons too. It's not going to perform well something like a Juju, or maybe it will, let's see. Well, before we get into the damage tests, if you are planning on purchasing anything from the Hypixel store, make sure to use code NITROS, it gets yourself 5% off. You should also subscribe to the channel. If you watch the videos and you haven't subscribed, please make sure to do so. You should also join the Discord server, it's linked in the description of this video. We offer slayers and dungeon carries, so if you need carries or want to carry and make some coins, make sure to join. Anyway, this Bouquet of Lies that we have right here has Sully to run it. We've also got Sharpness rather than Smite. Yeah, maybe we should change that. Okay, there we go. And I'm not going to lie, it's one-hit damage. Considering it isn't really a one-hit damage based weapon, really you're going to be mainly using this for its ability, is actually really impressive. I'm not going to lie. So we're dealing somewhere between 670 and 700k damage. 681, 682. When we compare that to something like a Felthorn Reaper, which I guess is more known for its regular one-hit damage, is really not too different. That deals around about 710k, so the difference is minuscule. And for its right-click ability, just so satisfying, and it's so OP. I just love it. I mean, even though this is a relatively early game weapon, I'm not going to lie, it could potentially be one of my favourite weapons, just because it's so unique. Just hear the dings, just hear the hits. It's a lovely sound to behold. I mean, look at that. And something that's really cool is if you actually watch, the Crimson Swipe does actually take effect on the right click as well. It's hard to tell. Yeah, but perhaps we can actually get that visualized. Maybe now? Yeah, there we go. Amazing. Anyway, with Sully, so we can move on to some little bit more difficult mobs or enemies to show that we can actually deal even more damage. So we were dealing 670, 680k before, now we're dealing nearly 750. And against the Voidling Fanatics, over 1.3, nearly 1.4 million damage. I mean, from a Bouquet of Lies, you cannot really complain with that at all. Okay, I think we should go into a dungeon and see what it can do there. Yeah, we are using Necron. It's a little bit scuffed. It's Wisdom, and I don't know why it's Wisdom, and some of it's not got gemstones on it, but it'll be fine. Anyway, let's have a look at the clearing capabilities. Not bad. I mean, it really isn't bad at all. Honestly, it's just satisfying to right-click, I can't lie. But how about its damaging stats within dungeons? Well, our regular left-click seems to be dealing somewhere between 17 to 21 million damage, which isn't bad at all. Can't really complain. It's not the greatest, but its right-click is, where it's really at. I mean, of course, the regular one-hit damage isn't too bad, but, I mean, that's great. It really is. Just kind of shreds through things like it's not even there. You don't really even have to aim properly. Kind of does it all for you. Can't complain. And the only one thing you do have to be a little bit wary about is the fact that its right click ability is on a 1 second cooldown. However, I wouldn't really say that's too bad at all. I mean, other weapons have a much worse cooldown than a 1 second. And it takes a couple of seconds or so for your first right click to kind of do its thing anyway. Now, when the Bouquet of Lies was first released, it was probably the most cracked and broken weapon I've ever seen. Well, especially for killing ghost size. Now, you would essentially just spam your right click ability against ghosts, and you would decimate absolutely everything in your path. Unfortunately, they did actually fix that. I guess it probably wasn't an intended feature for you to be able to right click and actually deal damage, because they changed it so this right click on the Bouquet of Lies just doesn't do anything towards ghosts, which is actually really sad. It really is, because it was so good. In fact, it was probably too good, to be honest. And to be fair, it probably makes sense why they changed it. But here's the thing. The Bouquet of Lies was introduced into Hypixel Skyblock on the 7th of September 2023, which is just over 5 months ago. When this weapon was first released, I feel like it was a little bit overshadowed by other weapons that were also released at the same time, such as the Felthorn Reaper. Nevertheless, it did definitely have quite a lot of hype around it, and I do remember a decent amount of people using it back then. However, I get the impression that people just don't use this weapon. I mean, it says it all. When you type in Bouquet of Lies on the auction house, there's only 3 pages worth of them. And that is not really a massive amount. However, it is pretty typical of melee weapons. But if I'm being completely honest, I just think the problem lies more with melee weapons and, I guess, Berserk just altogether rather than the particular weapons. There's just more desirable classes to be. Even after the Berserk class was completely and utterly buffed out of its brain, most people still want to play Mage or Archer instead of Berserk. And if you think about it, it makes sense. You have a Terminator and you have a Hyperion, the 2 main weapons that people are going to use when they either play Mage or if they play Archer. Now, there isn't really a Berserk weapon that is priced anywhere near either of those 2 weapons. I mean, you could say a Valkyrie, but the only reason the Valkyrie is priced at that price point is because it can be turned into a Hyperion, a Strayer, or Scylla. But there isn't really any game-breaking melee Berserk weapon. We have a Dark Claymore that I guess you could potentially consider as the best Berserk weapon, but it actually just isn't a Berserk weapon. I mean, people use it because it does the most damage, but it's not. It's just not. It just isn't. I mean, it's not intended to be, I guess, but it's still the best option, and I think that speaks a lot to the Berserk class. It's lacking a game-breaking item. This Bouquet of Lies that I've been using in this video cost me 50 million coins. It's solely to 5, it's withered, it's reconned, it's fuming potato, it's got a gemstone slot unlocked, it has a gemstone in there, it has decent enchantments. It's nothing really special, but at the end of the day, you probably shouldn't take this weapon any further. At the end of the day, that is good value for money. 50 million coins for a weapon that's pretty versatile. You can't go wrong. But let me know what you think of the Bouquet of Lies in the comments. If you did enjoy today's video, make sure you do leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.